Hey Adventurers, today is a Wheel of Time Season 1 TV show review. I mentioned in my Dune review, I think, that I'm going to start doing book to movie adaptation stuff or book to TV adaptation stuff on the Wednesday if I have something to do it on. So I finished Wheel of Time Season 1 and I'm not happy with it. Not happy with it. We'll leave it like that until I can give some more of my thoughts about it as I go through. I will be doing a little bit of episode by episode because I didn't go through and do an episode review each episode that came out, and I'm glad that I didn't, because I don't know how much benefit that would have been to the community. I want to do this series or this season review because I think it's important for me to get my thoughts out there, so they're all in one place, so people can look back at it, so I can look back at it and see, okay, this is what I'm thinking about it. This is where I want to go from here with the series. So to start out, I just compiled all my notes that I'd been taking throughout the season in a document. So to start out, I feel like the changes that they made were almost all completely unnecessary changes. Having read book 1 and now book 2, season 1 is based heavily off of book 1, and so I read book 1 and season 1 is supposed to follow the events of book 1, we'll put it that way. I read book 1, loved book 1, everything about it I loved. A lot of people have an issue with the ending, and maybe I will as I continue through the series, but at the moment I don't have an issue with the ending. I really loved the ending. I thought the ending was phenomenal, very fun, very, very much a fantasy ending, but I thought it was really cool. So after reading book 1, I was like, oh, I can see exactly how they would adapt this. It would be so easy to do very faithfully. And I shouldn't say it would be easy to adapt faithfully. It would be, there's not a lot of changes that need to be made. There are some because it's a different medium. Like, I understand that. I understand that you need to change it to a different medium, and I understand that you need to change it to bring in more of an audience. We'll get to more on that on the bringing in an audience a little bit later. But so is primarily unnecessary changes. The Trollocs seemed clunky. They don't really feel like half human, half creatures. So the half human, half creatures, that part doesn't really bother me that much because I understand it's fantasy. They're the orc type cannon fodder. They're just there to die, essentially. So I understand that part. It doesn't bother me nearly so much. But the Trollocs, the CGI for them just seemed clunky to me. From the first episode that they were in, I was like, I don't like it. It doesn't work for me at all. They feel like computer generated images all the time. Every single time I saw one, I was like, this doesn't feel real. I can't see the realism in this character. The fades were fine. I didn't mind the fades, but the Trollocs just, I didn't like the Trollocs at all. They did not work for me. There was a distinct lack of horror vibes that were so prominent in the book. So when reading the first half of the book, like, there were moments when I was like on the edge of my seat reading it because it was intense and there was horror vibes, and it was like, something's gonna jump out here and scare the crap out of these people. And I knew it was coming. I saw it. I understood. I could see the horror vibes, and I was like, this would be so cool in the TV show if they just follow this part, do this part almost word for word, because you almost could. It'd be so cool, and you could, it would be scary, it would be terrifying, but it would also be very just interesting and fun, and just like, this is what I want from it. And so there was so much of that throughout the whole book, where it was like, you could have just taken this from the book and adapted it, and it wouldn't have been a whole lot that needed changing. And so I felt like there was a ton of unnecessary changes. There was a distinct lack of horror vibes, and I didn't like that. So looks like for the first 3 episodes I didn't go episode by episode. I just kind of put my thoughts down, but I don't remember where this is at. But there's a section in the show, in, I want to say it's episode 2, that the crew meets with a group of white cloaks. That scene is not in the books, but for some reason I felt like it worked really well. I felt like it was the best acted scene that had happened up to that point. It was kind of visceral, not visceral, that's not the right word, but it was kind of just intense, and like, there's some tension going on here, and I like how the characters are acting and playing back and forth with each other as it should be. it really showed the skills of the actors that were acting in that scene, really, and so I was impressed with that. Padan Fain, at first, when his first appearance, I didn't like him at all. I was like, nope, that's not Padan Fain, that doesn't work, that's not right. But like, he just felt wrong for the role. But then there was a weird little smile that he gives right at the end of his first appearance, and you're like, okay, I can see it now. He works as Padan Fain. So you'll see there are things as I go through this that I did enjoy. I thought they were pretty cool. They worked well, and some of them that didn't. For the most part, I liked the casting. Characterizations, not so much, but I almost liked everybody, the casting for every role that they gave. Some of it took me a little bit to get there, but some of it I just, for the most part, I liked the casting. Okay, so there's this issue that they had in battles where a sword would hit a Trolloc and the Trollic's head would explode. That's not how swords work. That annoyed me. There's lots of stuff like that that was effects just for the sake of gore, and it didn't work. And so there was lots of stuff like that I noticed, and I was like, it's not working, this isn't good. There's a moment in, what is this, episode 2, where Matt and Perrin are talking, and Matt gives Perrin a knife that this is a spoiler review, like I'm talking spoilers, so I'm not worried about it. There's a moment where Matt gives Perrin a knife that his wife had made for Matt, that Perrin's wife had made for Matt. And I liked that scene. I thought it was a really brilliantly acted scene, one of the best up to that point. The scene, again, it didn't exist in the books, but I liked it, and it helped build the character of Matt and the character of Perrin, and I liked that. The thing with Perrin's wife, I did not like. We'll leave it at that. So there's a moment where Perrin is in the dream world, and he sees a wolf eating his wife. I did not like that scene. It did not work with anything in that scene. Did not work with the character of Perrin, did not work with the story of the Wheel of Time. I'm on book 2, so I can't say the whole entire story of the Wheel of Time, but at least the story of the Eye of the World, it didn't work, and so I don't like that. Now we're getting into episode by episode. I'll try and go a little bit faster through these, really just reading off my thoughts as that I wrote down. So episode 4 was really a step up, in my opinion. I thought it was good as an episode of a TV show, whereas none of the other 3 yet were even good as a TV show. Like, I didn't like them. I didn't think they were good at all. I was hoping that they were building, each one was successfully getting a little bit better each episode, but none of them felt like a good episode of a TV show to me until episode 4. That was the first time that I felt, okay, this is actually a good episode of a TV show. It gives me some hope that I know it's going to be different, it's going to be completely different, but I think I'm okay with that, and I think I can look at it as a TV show that is fantasy-ish setting. I can be okay with that, and then have Wheel of Time books completely separate. So that's kind of where I was thinking of it. I didn't like it as an adaptation, but at least it was a step in the right direction for a TV show, and so I was okay with that. Episode 5, I have no idea what to think of the show at that point. So episode 4, I was ready to be like, okay, I can let this go. I can look at them as 2 completely separate things. And episode 5 came along, and I could not do that anymore. It was the best acted episode that I had seen up to that point. I was ready to accept it as its own thing going into the episode, and seeing Matt and Rand stuff, I really liked that. I thought, okay, this is its own thing, I'm okay with that. And then the Perrin and Egwene stuff, that was like straight out of the books, not exactly, but really close to the books. I was like, okay, I like that. But then when I took the 2, the Matt and Rand and Perrin, or the Matt and Rand and then the Perrin and Egwene stuff, and put them together, I was like, these 2 things clash, because one is from the books, one is not, and now they're trying to bring them together and they don't work. They don't work together. Lan Moraine and Nynaeve stuff, no idea. It was a little bit of interesting, but I didn't really see a purpose in it. So yeah, not sure about it still. I thought after the last episode it might work as its own thing, but this episode is confusing me again. So that was where I was at episode 5. I was like, okay, episode 4 I can let it be its own thing. Episode 5, no, I can't. I don't know what I'm doing now. I can't separate the 2 anymore. Episode 6, I didn't like it at all. This is one of the only episodes of any television that I have ever been bored by. I was sitting on my phone scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or something because I was just that bored. It's like, oh. I watched the entire episode and I was like, it added nothing absolutely nothing to the story. It was so boring. There was one bright spot right towards the end when the Emmonsfield 5 reunite for the first time in the episode, and you're like, okay, this is a good moment, this is a good moment, and then it promptly ruins it by the fact that, well, one, they channel to get into the ways, which is not accurate at all. You don't need to channel to get into the ways according to the books, and it also gives the implication that the only way to get into the ways is through channeling, which is not true. That doesn't work because the whole other mess of stuff with the lore of the ways when you say that channeling is how you get into the ways. So I don't like that. So that didn't completely ruin the episode, or ruin that high point of the Emmonsfield 5 reuniting. Didn't really ruin that, but what did ruin it is that they promptly left Matt behind. And that was the end of the episode. I understand why Barney Harris, the actor who plays Matt, had to leave for that time. He left the show, drastically interfered with everything that they were doing, so now they have to rethink it and refigure all that stuff out. Refigure out how to tell this new story without Barney Harris is Matt at this with the rest of the crew at the moment. And so, like, I understand why it happened the way it happened. I don't like it. I understand it doesn't mean I have to like it. So that was episode 6. It was just, I was bored, one bright spot, ruined. That's where I was at with episode 6. Episode 7 was a stronger episode in that there were some things that I didn't hate. The octagonal stones that make up the ways is great. Just nothing else about the ways worked. So there's the design of what the ways were actually made of. There's these octagonal stones, pillar type things that make up the ways. I liked that. I thought that worked really well. The rest of the design of the ways didn't work for me at all. The fact that you could see that the lights shone out like a light normally does. It's not how the ways work. The darkness is so oppressive in the ways that the light doesn't go as far as it needs to, and then it just stops. It's really weird, but it's very interesting, and I didn't like that that's how it worked. The travel through the ways was like 15 minutes of the episode, and then it was done, if that. So it was very, very short amount of time, and then we're on to the rest of the story, which I understand they had a lot of ground to cover in the last 2 episodes. But I still was really kind of disappointed with the lack of time spent in the ways. I didn't actually mind, so here's another thing, I didn't actually mind the design of Faldara. It was different than I had imagined, but I was okay with that. It was not bad though. And the reason why is because it was designed like a fortress, like a castle should be. I can't explain it because I'm not an engineer and I don't remember the terminology for it, but the way it was designed, is basically designed to repel cannon fire, which I thought was very interesting. Doesn't really work with the story that the Wheel of Time is at right now, but I'm not sure if Aldar is a city from an older time that has just been kept up and continued to be lived in, or if it's one that they built in this current age. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I did like the design of it. I didn't mind it. I didn't particularly like the climate. It was basically a desert, which in the books it's a northern wintry barren land, and I wanted to see that. I'm in Alaska. I love winter. It's who I am, so I wanted to see that more northern climate, and we didn't really get it. I didn't mind Rand coming to the realization that it was him, though again I much preferred in the books. That was basically the entire journey of book 2 is his coming to the realization that it's him, or coming to accept that it is him rather. And the way that it was done in the show, I didn't mind it. It wasn't horrible. I didn't hate it. They did it pretty well as a sequence, though the editing of it was a bit weird. Like there was some clunky editing where it's just like jump cuts all over the place, and I didn't love the editing, but the sequence itself was okay. It made sense. There is one flashback that flashes back to a time when you don't have any context for it, and so it'd be safe to assume that non-book readers would have no idea when this is happening, what it's about, why it was never mentioned before. Technically it happens right after the Trolloc attack at the very beginning, So I, from having read the books, know it, and I was happy to see the scene, but then I got to thinking about it, I was like, nobody else who hasn't read the books is going to understand what that scene was from, where that was from. There's no context clues to tell you, oh, this is from this moment. Not really. So I mean, you have to think pretty hard to figure out, oh, Tam's got the moon. Okay, like, you have to go through a lot of hurdles to get there, and it just didn't work. First sighting of Patent Fane by Perrin, it was well done enough. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. I think that's about it for what I was actually okay with. They made an issue for themselves, like I already mentioned, with using the ways by only being able to open the ways by magic, by the one power. So I didn't like that. At first, I thought Min was miscast. First off, I didn't like where they introduced Min. I wish they would have introduced Min in, is it Maryland that she's introduced in right at the very beginning? I liked that. I wanted to see that continue. They didn't. They introduced her in Faldara. It's fine. At first, I thought she was horribly miscast. I didn't like her portrayal. I didn't like the costume design, makeup design, all that kind of stuff I didn't love. Looking back now, I don't mind the actress so much in the role. It's more of just the writing and the character design that I did not like at all. It did not feel true to Min from the books. The way her abilities don't work is completely different than how they work in the books. I didn't really like that either. That was episode 7. Now on to episode 8. One of the first things that you hear is, don't touch anything here, it'll kill you, blah blah blah, go through this. But they've already been touching the blight for, I don't know, a long time. They've been journeying through the blight, touching trees, touching branches, vines, stuff like that. If you don't want us to touch anything, don't tell us, like, it didn't work with what was, they weren't following what they were saying. Like, that part didn't work. I don't like the design of the blight. I didn't think that worked at all. It's the second time. Okay, so here's the last thing that really I needed to touch on is, I thought while I was watching the show, well, rather when I finished the episode of the show, I thought, okay, this is an episode that is good as an episode. I hated it, absolutely hated it as a adaptation of the book. Did not work at all in that way. But I thought, okay, so this is now the second episode that I have thought, okay, this is a good episode of a TV show. Other people have said they don't think that was the case. So I don't know why I thought that. I think maybe because it left some cliffhangers, it left some things open-ended, some questions that you needed answered, set up for storylines in the future, stuff like that. It set up some stuff, but it didn't work for me as an adaptation of the book. But I thought, okay, maybe this is still okay as a TV show. I don't know if that's the case anymore, because I've heard other people say, no, this is a horrible episode. Some people who just had read the books or hadn't read the books but had just watched the show were like, no, this is a horrible episode. So I'm not sure why I thought that. At the moment I still think that that's the case, but I don't know, and I will continue to be thinking about that as we go. A few things that I was okay with in this episode, like, I can only think of 3. One of them was the Luz Theron opening. I really, the cold open right at the beginning of the episode, I really liked that. I thought that was well done. I thought that was interesting enough. Specifically, the thing that I liked, well, I liked that it was more of a sci-fi world at that point, but what I really liked was that they were using a different language. I'm not positive because I don't speak every language and I don't recognize every language, but it sounded like a language that was completely made up for the show, and I liked that. That's how it should be. I liked the Quindilar seal, I don't know how to pronounce it. I know how I would pronounce it, but I don't know how it's pronounced. I thought, well, first off, it wasn't accurate to the books at all. They're about this big in the book, something like that. In the movie, it was a massive piece of the floor. I liked it in the movie, or in the show though. I thought it looked really cool. Not what I imagined. It actually looked cool, and I kind of liked it. The conversation, or the speech rather, that Lan gave to Nynaeve, that's straight out of book 2 almost, and I liked it because it was straight out of the book. It didn't work terribly well with the setting, with where the characters are at and their character development. Other than that, I have very mixed opinions on it. My mind is trying to look at the show as its own thing and not even bring the books into it, but it's not working. So I'm trying, my brain is like, okay, this is clearly not the Wheel of Time, so let's look at it as its own thing, but then I'm also like, well, it kind of is, and so I'm trying to bring them together, and I'm not trying to, but it's trying to, but I really don't have good thoughts and opinions on this show. Overall, I was very, very disappointed with the show. I'd give it maybe like a 4 out of 10. It's not working for me at all at the moment. It's really sad because I wanted this show to be epic. I wanted it to be so good, and this next big fantasy series that I could really get into and really enjoy, and it didn't work for me at all. If it's working for other people, that's great. Good for you. Continue watching and enjoying it. For me, it's not working, and I don't know if I will be able to watch season 2. I suspect I probably will watch it. I suspect I won't be happy with it. I mentioned earlier that I would touch on the fact that they have to change the show. First off, they have to change the story to adapt it to a TV show, and then I already kind of talked about that, and it's fine. I feel like they could have done better. I feel like with 10 episodes you could have just about adapted the book faithfully. There would have been some changes, I understand that, but I feel like you could have adapted it faithfully. And then the other aspect to that is I understand that they have to change the story in a way so that it'll draw in new viewers, people who are interested in the story. My thinking is I don't understand why, and I don't believe that the story is so bad or that the viewers are so stupid, and it's not the wording I'd like, it's not the wording that I completely intend, but I can't think of how I'm exactly trying to word it, but I don't feel like the viewers are so stupid that they can't tell a good story when they see it. And so by changing the story from the books in order to bring in new viewers, you're first off, you're alienating your viewers who love the books, who think the books are perfect as they are and they don't need any updating, there's nothing as it is, or at least they lean more towards that side of things. So you're alienating one major important fan base to bring in another, but these others are still going to be able to look at this show and be like, no, this isn't a good story. And so I feel like almost every change they made was completely unnecessary and actually hurt them more than helped them. Of course, I haven't read the rest of the books. I've only read up through book 2. So I can't say what type of stuff with foreshadowing they have set up that will be paid off in later seasons. I don't know because I haven't read the books. But I don't think that was worth it at this point. I feel like they should have told the story of book 1, or told the story of book 1 and a little bit of book 2, and then continued on from there. They didn't. It is what it is. I don't have to like it. I won't like it, I don't like it. But we will see if they have doomed themselves by telling the story in the way they told the story. I don't know what's gonna happen with the show. I want the show to succeed. I want people to enjoy this show. I want the show to be massive. I also want to love the show, and I want the show to be an adaptation of the book, not something completely random and different. And I understand you can look at it as its own spinning of the wheel. I'm trying, and it's not working. Here's the sad part. I love the Hobbit movies. I have my issues with them, but I love the Hobbit movies. I think they're so much fun to watch. And I think that they still capture the essence of Middle-earth in many ways. There's some issues with them, absolutely. Some things that I really don't like, some changes that they made from the book to the movies. I understand that. There's things that I don't like about them, but overall, I still really enjoy watching the movies, and I'm not getting that with this series. So I'm very disappointed with the series. I hope it does great. I hope it does exactly what it needs to do, but I wish it would have been better. One last thing really quickly that I forgot to mention, but I think it's important, is after watching this show, I have very, very little hope, and I am terrified of the next adaptations to come, specifically Lord of the Rings on Prime, because it's also made by Amazon Prime. It's not made by the same writers, directors, anything like that. So after seeing this season of the show, I'm terrified for Lord of the Rings on Prime. I'm still hopeful that it's amazing. I'm terrified and I'm scared that it won't be, and I'm really leaning towards that it's not going to be. I'm also scared for Brandon Sanderson adaptations, the adaptations of his works that he's going to be doing, things like Mistborn, that he has already talked about, how the types of changes that he's going to be making, and the fact that he's a consulting producer on Wheel of Time. I understand that means he just tells them things that he likes or that are supposed to be how they are in the books, and they can decide to listen to him or not. So like, I understand that it's not him that's telling this story, but I'm still terrified that his adaptations are going to be not good, and I don't want that to be the case. I don't want Lord of the Rings on Prime to be horrible. So those, I'm scared for the next few adaptations that are going to start coming out soon here, and we'll see what happens, but that's where I'm at right now. So that's my thoughts on Wheel of Time Season 1. This is going to be a long video for me to edit. Hopefully I can just cut out the ums like I try to. Hopefully there's not a whole lot of rambling that I need to get rid of, because I kind of want my thoughts in this video so people can watch the video and be like, okay, here's what he thinks. Thank you guys for watching Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and sometimes Wednesdays if it's a adaptation discussion of some sort. We will see you guys again soon. We have our social medias linked in the description down below. Stay well.